Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar here in the EMS industry. And my name is Josh Gregory. If you've never been to one of these before, I'm the Vice President of Education here at Consultant. And again, these webinars are really just a place for you to come and learn about this industry, ask questions, and we're going to continue to provide content each week as well so that you can learn something. And then whether you have questions about what we talk about or anything about the space, we're going to be here to answer those each and every week. Now, if you are here live, like I said, that Q&A is going to happen at the end. So as we're going through this, you can go ahead and be thinking of your questions and you can type them in and it can be there for when we get to the Q&A. Just make sure that if you do want to ask one of those questions, if you want to put it in for Hans and I to answer later, just make sure you put it in the Q&A button at the bottom. So if you put it anywhere else, I'm not going to see it. So make sure you put it in the Q&A at the bottom if you want us to answer those questions. Now, the way we've kind of been going through different things each week in the EMS industry, covering different topics. So you can go back to our YouTube page and watch those different ones if you are here live or if you're on there now. And we've had a series of topics here. And anyone who's been in the logistics industry in any capacity knows that one of the most crucial parts of the equation is actually the truck side of things. Both understanding which trucks to put on the road, any other equipment that you need, and how to keep those trucks on the road so that you can continue to make deliveries, whatever those deliveries are. In the EMS space, it's patients. So we have brought Hans back on today to talk through that side of the equation for EMS routes. So Hans, if you want to go ahead and jump on and say hello. And for those of you who haven't seen him before, Hans has started businesses in this space. He's been mentor for many different people in this space across the country. So we've brought him on as our expert to help talk through this. So Hans, you want to say hello to everybody?
Good afternoon, Josh. Good afternoon, everybody that's on the webinar. I appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Hopefully, I can teach you guys as much as possible.
That's the goal every week. So Hans, we're just gonna start easy. So can you just kind of go over the different types of vehicles that you see in this space, and then maybe the pros and cons of those types of vehicles?
Definitely, definitely. Now, so most everyone out in the public, they're familiar with the Type 1 ambulances. Type 1 ambulances, you will primarily see those ambulances in the ambulance fire department setting, in the hospital settings, and I'll give you guys a brief definition of what a Type 1 ambulance is. A Type 1 ambulance is a kind of ambulance that is mounted on a truck. So you have the back patient compartment, and it's mounted to a truck cab, right? You'll see those with the Dodge, Rams, the 3500 front compartments. You'll see those on the Ford. So it'll be a bigger truck, and the Type 1 ambulance usually will have a small window from where the drivers are to where the patients are, and you can literally pass smaller things through that window. It has a small window of opening between the driver and the patient compartment, which is called the pass-through or a call-through. A Type 1 ambulance is usually used for advanced life support or rescue work. It can carry more equipment and supplies more than your other type of ambulances. All right. Now, type 1 usually gets confused with the type 3 because, again, it's a box style patient compartment. But on a type 3 ambulance, the box compartment is mounted to a van style front. So, again, a type 3 ambulance is mounted on a cutaway van chassis. The cab is an integral part of the ambulance unit. The connection between the cab and the patient module can vary from appearance. So, in a type 3, you'll have a bigger opening where you could actually walk back from the driver's side to the patient side. Unlike the type 1, it's usually a small window. Now, and those are the two types that you'll see. You'll see the box types at private hospitals and all your major fire departments. Now, the one that you see a lot of private ambulance companies use, like myself, will have a type 2. And a type 2 ambulance is a van style ambulance with a raised roof and a basic patient care feature. It's mainly used for like hospital transports, but it also can be used for 911 work. Type 2 ambulances have better gas mileage than other ambulance types, especially if you're doing local. You'll see the type 2s more in Ford. It's called a Ford Transit, or type 2 Mercedes has their own version. It's a Sprinter. So the same thing that you guys see with Sprinter vans that are used for patient transports with Mercedes, or sometimes you'll see the custom Sprinter vans. Those are the exact same vans that's retrofitted or for an ambulance. All right. And then you'll have the Chevy van as well. So those are the three different types. Any questions on those, Josh, that you want me to go into, or you want me to just do the pros and cons?
Yeah, let's do the pros and cons, but real quick, just I saw a hand go up from one of the participants. We'll get to Q&A. So if you do have a question that you want us to get to, if you put it in the Q&A button at the bottom of the window, that's how we'll get to it. So just I saw your hand. I don't want you to think that we're ignoring you. Just wanted to make sure that if you have a question, go ahead and type it into the Q&A, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But yeah, Hans, if you want to go pros and cons of each of those types.
Oh, definitely. So one of the pros, of course, is when you're driving a Mercedes Sprinter, your employees love it, right? They offer the best driver visibility and chassis can provide. Sprinters have usually a very large windshield that allows for people to see better in the visibility, and the space is pretty spacious, right, for the city. Now, for the Type 1 and Type 3 ambulances, the box style ambulances, they're very good for carrying your larger patients, bariatric patients, as we like to call them in the medical field. There's plenty of room. So if you have patients that are claustrophobic, those ambulances work great, especially with the Type 1, because it's built on a truck chassis. You can use those for rough terrain. They're just powerful engines, so they're great for hard to reach places. They're great again if you are becoming part of the AMR disaster relief program. So if you enter your ambulances into programs like that, the Type 1 ambulances are really, really great. Type 2, again, it's great eye candy. Employees love the Type 2. You see them a lot. They're pretty popular now. I think they're really, really good for local because a lot of the Type 2s come in regular gas and they're not diesel. So for your local transports, they're really, really good for those type of commutes, those type of transports or routes, as we would like to say. Um, the one thing about it is, of course, the Type 2 ambulances, very small compartments. Those are some of the cons. Sometimes it's hard to get to the patient, or if you have a patient that has family members that want to that want to travel with them, it's pretty tight. Again, it's not really equipped for a lot of movement around, so that's why they don't suggest it for 911. Because when you're doing 911 transports, everything's happening in the back, and the more room you have, the better. Personally, myself, when I do 911, when I did 911 in the past, Type 1 and Type 3 with the bigger compartments, just a lot easier to use. Definitely difficult to maneuver around traffic, but when you're inside the truck, you're not really worried about that. But Type 2, the ambulance style, sprinter style, man, employees love it, patients love it. It has a marketing side to it because people love seeing those new transits. Definitely just a greater look. But again, that's just depending on the individual. If you want to kind of mirror the fire department, you're going to go with the Type 1 or a Type 3. But again, in private EMS, you don't see too many Type 1 or Type 3s. They're mainly diesel trucks. They're bigger, heavier engine trucks. So again, the maintenance is going to be a little bit more. So you don't see those. They're not commonly used in the non-emergency side.
Yeah, and I think that's just a good point in general, is that there's a lot of this that if you, depending on what part of this industry you decide to get into, you might look at different types of vehicles. If you're strictly staying non-emergency, then you can be, a little more selective and choose the vehicle that maybe looks better or that your drivers and patients are more comfortable in versus having enough space to handle emergencies. Ideally, if you're in non-emergency, you're not dealing with emergencies. It's a bad day if you've got any kind of
Yeah.
emergency. That's you're not trying to necessarily buy vehicles that can handle that all of the time. So some of it's going to go into, am I strictly non-emergency, or do I start to get into a couple of other, industries or side ways that I can use these same vehicles? And then it might impact the decisions you make on the vehicles that you buy.
Exactly. And I think that, again, you always say things perfectly. And it's really just depending. If you're going to buy into the non-emergency side, I wouldn't suggest getting a Type 1, right? That's a heavier truck. They're used for, getting for long distance transports. But if you're buying a company that already has a contract to do 911 backup, or crisis prevention, or even you get into the mental health field where you're transporting mental health patients, then yeah, maybe type 1 will work for you because you want more room for your employees. But again, the majority of people that work in the non-emergency space, they're going to deal with the type 2 ambulances.
Right. Now, one of the things you touched on, diesel versus gas. Do you ever see anybody even in the type 2 going for diesel type, or do those even exist, or what are the pros and cons there?
Okay, so yes, diesel is at one time was very popular, right? Now I think in the last 4 years, a lot of private ambulance owners have done away with their diesel trucks, and we've converted to gas, right? Because again, a lot of our transports are inner city. It's really rural. It's really close. You want to build your routes where you're not going so far. And keep in mind that when you look at, like, right now today, the cost of diesel is $3.85, and the cost of gas is $3.23. That's the average cost right now, right? Of course, it varies depending on the state that you're in, but that's a 62 cents difference. And so when Medicare is paying you per mile, you want to make sure that you're maximizing every dollar. And if the patient's going to get from point A to point B the same way, I mean, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to take them the least, costly way, right? And so I want to make sure that I maximize my money even with my fuel. So right now, yes, I would definitely do um, a, a regular gas. But again, one of the pros of diesel, it's great for long distance. Really, really good if you start picking up patients and you're doing state to state transports. But you gotta think about the maintenance repair on diesels are very expensive, right? Um, Let me see what else. The fuel costs, of course, we talked about that. The weight of diesel trucks, the engine blocks are heavy and usually can impact on, the load, the cost. So again, that's going to go into your fuel. The heavier, then the more fuel that you're using. So, and they're just expensive to maintain. That's some of the cons on the diesel, right? And so for regular fuel, I I just love it. It's just easier, it's cheaper. The maintenance cost is cheaper. There's just too many pros to just going regular
Yeah.
for me right now, especially with the cost of gas and just the cost of maintenance, and um yeah, I literally do not have any more diesel trucks in my fleet right now.
Yeah.
Because again, we are going, we're just non-emergency.
Yep.
In non-emergency, you're going, you're going 5 miles here, 10 miles there, and I want to be, as fuel efficient as possible.
Yeah. Have you seen or heard of anybody looking at electric in this space since it's low mileage and easy vehicles? Oh, you are? Okay.
I am, yes, yeah, I am. Um, and so here's one of the things that I'm finding out is, like, there are a couple of vendors out there, I think two in particular, that are custom fitting ambulances to go electric. They're not too popular. They're in the uh trial phase, right? The beta phase. Uh, but again, you want to be mindful because there's going to be a lot of downtime, right? And if your truck is on the road for 12 hours and you have back to back to back clients, do you really have time to charge it, right? So the one thing that I was doing, I was going to introduce an electric vehicle to my space, but that was going to be my reserve truck,
Got it.
right? So that will definitely still help me increase my profit margin. But again, if you have a patient running late, or if you're running late to pick up another patient because you're stuck with one patient, then jump on that electric vehicle and go pick up that patient. You can still save a lot of money. So that is something that I want to roll out in 2024 for my own company. Um, I want to be the first in Georgia. There are, I think, two or three companies that are actually fire departments that have ambulance ambulances that are electric. So I want to talk to them and really see how quick is the charging before I roll that out. But that is key. That is a game changer. If you can start getting a fleet of electric ambulances, I mean, your profit is just going to increase significantly. I
Yeah.
like where your head's at, Josh.
Yeah. The other thing about electrics, there's always going to be state to state different incentives for some of you, if you're in California, it's often easier to get into electric because the state gives you some incentives and it's often easier to find charging stations. So it can depend, but I think that's the important thing is knowing, are you going to have any charge time during the day? So how many miles are you going to be, how many hours are you going to be out on the road? And, just the space, the office or wherever you're parking your vehicles, which we'll get to in a little bit, does that have any capacity to charge the vehicles? And is there any challenges there? But
Yeah.
contrary to what we've seen on the FedEx side, the big challenge with FedEx is that everything's parked at a terminal. And so that terminal would have to be able to charge, hundreds, if not 1,000 different vehicles every night. So that's a big drain. But when you're just talking about your own company, when there's only a few vehicles to be prepared for, it's a lot easier to talk about how you would charge that at night.
Yeah, definitely.
So just quickly, these different type vehicles, what's kind of a range for people to think through in terms of how much, a new or a used vehicle could cost there?
Okay, well, good question. Of course, type three, type one are probably the most expensive brand new. A type one, again, keep in mind, it is a chassis that's tied to or mounted to an actual truck, like a F, you know, 350 or
Yeah.
Dodge, one of the big, powerful front end diesel trucks. Those trucks can go from brand new 100 to 150K. Again, those are typically the trucks that the ambulance fire departments will have, right? And they're
Yeah.
going to have those trucks for 5, maybe 10 years. And then type three is the same box truck that's mounted onto a van type. You could get a brand new one from that range of 80,000 to 120,000. Now, type two, the ones that you see a lot on the road, what private EMS, the sprinters, and the transit vans, they have gone up in price in the last 5 years. They've gone from 70,000 to 80 to 120,000 brand new. And again, it's like buying a car, Josh. You're gonna look at if you want to go brand new or if you want to go used, you're gonna look at the miles, you're gonna look at the maintenance reports. You're not really gonna get a Carfax on ambulances, but you can definitely get a history. So a lot of people, a lot of my mentees that have gone into the space and have bought used trucks, they've actually fared well by buying used trucks from ambulance companies that are now, trading their new ones in for used ones in for new ones, and they're starting to, sell off the old ones. So the history with those trucks. So that's not a bad idea. Going to ambulance companies or going to large hospitals that have ambulances that are now getting ready to sell them. And you can see those ambulances range from, I've seen them as low as 20,000 to 60,000.
Okay.
Again, depending on the miles, the wear and tear, the life that the chassis has on it, a lot of things come into play. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to all those different factors in pricing the right type of truck.
Got it. And how long do the vehicles normally last? Mileage or number of years before you look at retiring them?
I've seen vehicles go up to 300 to 400,000 miles. I literally just sold two trucks that are at 400,000 miles. They were both diesel. I see that the diesel engines last longer. That is a plus with the diesel engines. But my transits ran up to about 300,000 miles. So I think the frame of the truck, the actual body of the truck can last 10, 15 years easily. The engines probably go up to 400,000 miles
Okay. Yeah. So
before
it's
you
all
want to
just a
replace the engine.
function. Yeah, just a function of the mileage. So it'll another thing to always be thinking about but the good news is most of these territories is, as you've kind of seen, most of these businesses are pretty low mileage.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I have a couple of mentees that have been in the business for 5 years, still running the first same trucks
Yeah.
that they've had. And those trucks have well over 300,000 miles on.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a helpful range for people to start to think through, like, what kind, it's not one where you're gonna have to be replacing vehicles every single year. It's one you can get,
Yeah.
they can last a long time, and the main ones you'll be adding are if you've grown enough where you need to add vehicles.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the great thing is that all these vehicles are over 6,000 pounds.
yeah,
So you can write off the whole price of the vehicle on your taxes.
yeah,
Right? That's a key benefit to it. Hey, just a little tip. Like,
yeah,
right, if you know that you're gonna spend it, don't think about you're gonna get some of the money back when you write off that actual vehicle.
yeah. It's
So,
definitely true. Yeah, it's always good to think about the tax benefit when you're buying these. It's important. I mean, it is a part of the equation when you're thinking through your cash flow. Uh,
definitely.
So on the maintenance side, though, do you have to take it anywhere specific, or normal mechanics kind of good enough to help you out with the fixes that you get?
Yeah, so With my trucks, I definitely have the rule of three. I have three mechanics, I have three body shops that I go to, and I have three electrical personnels because you have your lights, you have just three different, and I have three AC and heating companies. So I make sure that I have my Rolodex. I'm old school, so my Rolodex with the three people and making sure that again they might vary in prices just a little bit, but what I'm looking for is reliability and turnaround time because you want to get with a mechanic that can really turn that truck around and get it back to you within a couple of days.
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really it. But most mechanics can work on all these trucks. Again, they're on regular truck engines. Nothing different from our trucks than any other truck that you see out there that a family's using, but you're looking at the back where the patient compartment is, and that's what makes it an ambulance.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that equipment in a second because I think that's a really important part of this equation. But one thing you mentioned earlier, and it applies to if you have to take a vehicle into the shop. So, do you recommend having some kind of spare or reserve vehicle for these businesses?
Yeah, great question. So every time um, I do teach or I have a mentor or mentee that I talk to, the rule is if you are running one truck, you want to have a reserve, right? And if you're running two trucks, you want to have a reserve. If you're getting into this business and you're buying a business that's already running and you're running three trucks, you want to make sure that if one of those trucks go down, you have a spare, right? That's always the key. My first year, I started with one truck back in 2015, and every time that truck went down, I would have to call an affiliate and ask them, "Hey, can you transport my patients for me?" And hope that I get those patients back. So you want to make sure I learned from, lessons in life that, all right, so every truck I'm running, I need to have a spare waiting. Also, what that does is it allows you to put those other trucks in rotation for maintenance, your scheduled maintenance and bringing that reserve truck and just keeping patients transported. And now truck one's getting service. When that truck comes back in, truck two's getting service, and it continues the flow. Nothing ever stops. So yeah, the rule is if you're running one truck, you need a reserve. If you're running two trucks, you need the third reserve. Three trucks, a fourth, and so on and so on.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think that's just a general rule of thumb that anyone who's worked in this type of industry knows that you need to have some kind of spare volume so that, on the days where you need contingency, then you've got some way to fill it. Or just like you said, you can because this isn't something where, if the packages aren't going to wait till tomorrow if the truck's down, because the packages are people and you're building those
Yeah.
relationships and that consistency in your brand is crucial. So as much as you can, you never want to be the guy who says, "Oh, sorry, the truck's down, can't take you to the hospital this day." You always want to be the guy who can say yes.
And your employees and your patients love that. You're just being reliable, you're being responsible, you're being proactive. So there's just a lot of benefits to making sure that, hey, you know what? Even though I have an opportunity to grow, and this is something that every individual owner has to really think about. Even though you might have a potential to fill all your trucks, you don't want to do it because there's always a chance of a flat tire, just the simplest things, or your brakes going bad. So you might have two trucks and you have that third as a spare, and you'll have a social worker say, "Hey, Josh, I got three patients that need transport." To me, I wouldn't do it unless I knew that I had a fourth truck coming,
Yeah.
right? And so, but it's very tempting,
Yeah.
right?
It's tempting,
So
but it's a guarantee that the day that you accept three patients is the day you get a truck that goes down,
yeah,
right?
yes, definitely. So again, everybody has to do what works best for them. I just think that's the best model to follow is just make sure you have a reserve for every truck that you're running.
Yeah, because and you've said it many times, but it still holds true that consistency and the reliability of your brand. If it gets damaged, it's really hard to recover in the eyes of the people who can no longer rely on you. So it's often better to just be the consistent provider as opposed to picking up that one day of incremental revenue. But you can always make that decision. It's always a risk that you can decide to make in your business, but just important to be aware of it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if everyone knows there's no one right now dominating this space. So it's wide open. So your reputation is everything, right? Because there's still cities and counties that's looking for that one provider that is reliable. So as long as that it's out there, it's really up to anyone, the individual, to see how long they could scale by the customer service they provide. And that's just one major important is just knowing that if something goes bad, I got my contingency,
Yeah.
so.
Now, we haven't gone too far down the path of like all the things you need to do around marketing and building, and if you want to create a logo, but these are trucks that you will get wrapped. Any advice on, where to go to get those wrapped and maybe how much is too much on how much you want to put on the sides of your vehicles?
Listen, when I first started, I spent close to $6,000 wrapping a truck. I needed the whole glory, first responders, customer service, and the slogan where the customers come first. Like, and to be honest with you, it did fare pretty well because I would get employees or future employees saying, "Hey, I saw your trucks, I liked your trucks, and how can I be part of your team?" Same thing though. I got patients that saw the truck and they thought it was very professional, right? And they liked it. But again, that was $6,000, $7,000 for one wrapping on one truck. That could become very costly. Now my trucks are very simple, very professional, and I probably spend about $1,000 to $1,500 per truck. Still same effect, right? And I'm noticing that bigger is not always better, right? And you kind of want a simplicity sometimes works with the customers because they really want simple and professional. And again, this just goes with the individual, whatever your character, whatever your dreams are to put on that truck. I would say just don't overdo it, right? Where it's too much, but you want to make sure that when you're marketing and when you're rapping, you're getting your point across. That's the major thing, right? Our slogan was first responders with the big one, and then on the side of the truck, it says where the customer comes first. That's what we wanted people to see and how to contact us. Our phone number, and if you're interested in emailing us, email us, right? So now my trucks are constant healthcare, the new constant in healthcare. Constant Care EMS, the new constant in healthcare. Again, very big on the name, very big on the slogan because we want to stand behind our slogan and we want you to be able to contact us because your truck is your marketing. It's a walking billboard, right? So think about the time that people have to look at it. They don't have that much time. It's usually stoplight or they're driving next to you. So you don't want to give them too much to look at and they don't memorize it. So I just broke it down to three things: my name, my slogan, my contact info. Again, that helps. And it helps with its marketing and it keeps it simple, right? You ever
Yeah.
heard of that? Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep, Kiss,
I
yep.
use that for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, and as you're going, as you're getting into the space, whether you start your own or buy one, this is something where we can help you. We'll help you with the logo. We can help you with that kind of thought process of how to build it, the right things to say, what it should look like on your truck. But I think that's really helpful advice, just at a high level on what to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
real quick to touch on that, I know one thing that we're also going to help people on is like people that are not in this space, they really don't understand the color scheme in healthcare. That's something you and I can help them with because we want you guys to be very successful, right? That's the goal, right? For everybody to buy a company that we can help tweak and make it more successful, or if they're looking to start a company, we can help them with that. And one of the things that I love doing is helping people with the branding. And branding even breaks down to the color scheme. And you want to stay away from certain colors. So, again, like Josh said, we can help you guys with the color scheme, the name, the slogan, anything that will really help you, distinguish yourself.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so a last thing here that I just want to talk through, and it's not necessarily a small point, but we've talked about the vehicles, but there is other equipment that you do have to have in the vehicle. So, what are the main things people need to be aware of when it comes to the types of equipment that need to be in the back of the vehicle for kind of compliance and hitting the legal requirement there?
Okay, great question. The one thing is, if you're looking to buy an ambulance, you want to pay attention to a couple of things, and you're going to do your inspection. One is you want to make sure, brand new or used, doesn't matter, make sure all your lights work, and not just your regular vehicle lights, but all the lights on the top. You want to make sure your siren works. You want to make sure your microphone works. These are things that your inspector is going to check to make sure that you are able to run as an ambulance company. Now, that's the outside of the truck. On the inside, both compartments, because they're gonna have two separate AC units, have to work. You want to make sure that each side, the employee compartment and the patient compartment blows cold AC and hot air, right? The heat works correctly. Then another thing you want to look at is every truck should have a mounted suction on it, right? These are just the simple things. I know the light sounds simple, but it's something that people overlook, right? The AC is something you're thinking, nope, you want to make sure that your AC works in the back and the front. You want to make sure that your patients, the state's going to make sure that your patients are comfortable and your employees are comfortable, right? And then the major thing again is you want to get a stretcher. We got to get a stretcher. That's one of those things where used, you could get a stretcher used from $500 to probably 2,500, but stretchers brand new can range from 5,000 to $10,000, depending on if you want the electric stretcher. They could go up to 20K, which is another major part of how do I market this? Because even when you come down to the littlest things as far as your stretcher, that can make or break an employee. So if you know that you're a company that carries pretty large patients, then I would invest in an electrical stretcher. Less wear and tear on your employee's back, less chances of them calling workman's comp issues. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to those things. So even down from the truck, even down to the actual equipment can help determine if you're going to get the right employee and the right patients. So those are key things. Then other things again are your backboards, your AEDs, splinters. Again, we're going to have all the equipment that the big guys have, right? The fire departments. We're just not using them.
Yeah.
I
And
know that sounds weird, but I think in my 7 years, I've probably used 10 nasal cannulas. Those are the little things that you just put. Like, we don't use it. Most of our equipment will go expired, but you have to have it per state law.
got it. Yeah. So does the state come out and basically when you're setting up your company, they kind of validate that your vehicles check some boxes? And I'm sure that's going to vary state to state as well.
Yes, every state's going to give you an actual checkoff sheet, and the checkoff sheet is going to have a list of supplies that you need to have. I've learned that like Georgia's pretty extensive, South Carolina's not as extensive as Georgia, right? But they are going to ask you for the main stuff like the stretcher, the AED, backboards, splinters, and your regional director or whoever's appointed to your district is going to come out. He's going to inspect your vehicle, and that's usually in every state the last process before they deem you an actual ambulance company. That's the part where the chills come and you're like, hey, this is crazy. So, like in Georgia, prime example, once my regional director's name is Vinny. He used to be a captain at the fire department. He'll come out and they'll do a full inspection. They'll tell you turn your signals on, they'll tell you to turn the sirens on. They'll go in the truck, turn on the air condition, make sure it blows cold. They'll turn the heat on. Same thing in the back compartment. They'll even check, and guys, pay attention to this. They'll even check your seat belts to make sure there's no frays in the seatbelt. Make sure that you're securing your employees and your patients appropriately. So if you are out there buying a used stretcher, make sure that they're giving you new belts for your stretcher because again, that's going to be a pass or fail. But like you said, Josh, when the state comes, they're going to check all those things. They're going to check your minor equipment, even band-aids or Vaseline, gauze, to your normal saline, which is your fluids, IV fluids. They're going to check all that, and every state list is going to tell you how much you need to buy. So there's no guessing game to it, right? So if you want to get licensed in Nashville, or if you're purchasing an ambulance company in Nashville, you want to make sure that you have that checkoff list from the person that you're purchasing the ambulance for, and every ambulance that they're selling you, if they're selling it to you with equipment, they're actually giving you every equipment that's going to help you pass inspection. Because in most states, you're going to have to do an inspection every annually to make sure that your trucks are up to par with state rules and regs.
Yeah. And that's important. I think in general, you're going to find that there are state to state differences in this space. And so we'll help you as you're going through that, not just kind of give you, here's the things you should know in general, but we'll help you kind of, get through the weeds on all of your state specific questions as well.
Yes.
So just here's my last question coming up. So if anyone does have any questions for Hans or I, the Q&A, you can type it in now. But Hans, where do you find that people typically store their vehicles, or is there a type? Does everyone typically have an office space? What does that look like?
Yeah, most of the times, like what I've noticed in the north, a lot of people will have a fenced back parking lot, right? In Georgia, Florida, it's really just wherever your office space is, that's where you're going to park your vehicles. I've never seen anybody park their vehicles outside of the office space, like far away, because again, your employees are coming there in the morning or at night. They're getting onto the truck, and they usually have to go in the office to pick up their supplies. So 99% of the time, vehicles are stored at the same office where the employees have to clock in. Whether it's outside or inside, it really doesn't matter. Not too many people store theirs in a garage. Some people do, but it really just depends on the type of office space you can find. If you can find one that's very inexpensive and comes within a garage that can store your ambulances, that's awesome. Especially it helps when your employees have to check off the truck and it's raining. So now they can check it off in a garage and then, go to their destination. But one of the key things that I tell people that are getting into this space is if you're looking for an office space, make sure that you have enough parking for one truck will dictate three parking spots, right? Because you need one for the truck and two for the employees, because each truck has to have two employees driving. So that's key on making sure that you have enough parking and make sure that your landlord knows that you are going to be doing overnight parking as well. Hate to get that phone call like, hey, why are there trucks? And like.
Yeah.
So that's key.
Yeah. Are there any requirements on the actual office? Does that get checked as well? Like stuff that you have to have?
Yeah, so man, that's a good question. So two times your office is going to get checked. So years ago, back in 2015, a lot of people in the state were allowing people to start ambulance companies actually from home. So prior to 2015, but the laws changed because of HIPAA for Medicare and stuff like that. So you actually have to be in an office space. So they are Medicare will come by, and before you get your Medicare numbers, so this has nothing to do with your actual EMS numbers. You can be licensed as an EMS service, but again, you guys remember some of the webinars we talked about. Medicare is your main payer source because they're government insurance. So once you apply for Medicare, they're going to do really a drive-by. They're going to make sure that you're actually in an office. Now, some states require that you have an office space that has a certificate of occupancy from the fire department, but other states like Illinois, they don't require that. You just need your business license, and you can really, once you get your business license, you can open up, and then you go through the process of getting your EMS license. So the EMS director in some states will come in. They'll just make sure that you actually have a space, but the EMS director is really checking your truck because that's where the patient is. So just to really break it down, you have an urgent care on wheels,
Yeah.
and they're watching what's really behind the wheels, and they're making sure that you might have appropriate storage space for your supplies and a lock space for your patient's files. So your EMS director is going to come and check to make sure you have storage space for like your oxygen and all your supplies, and then make sure that the office that the files are being kept in are going to be locked. It's a locked office, or at least locked filing cabinet.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's helpful for people to at least understand what normally the minimums will be and start to kind of conceptualize how their office will look and think through where they can put theirs.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've seen people start ambulance offices within a within an office. So you know how you'll have those office suites, and they'll have like a rental suite. So you have to go in the office and go to suite three. So I've seen that as well. Especially in like places where space is limited, like Jersey and other places. So one of my mentees, he has an office space within an office.
got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, that was the end of my question. So if anyone has any, I saw a hand go up again, but if you have a question, type it into that Q&A and we'll get to it. If nobody has any, just if in case anybody's typing, you've got about 20 seconds while I kind of finish this last part off. So if this is your first time here, you haven't seen us talk about this yet. One, all of our previous webinars are on YouTube, so you can go back and watch all of those. And we'll continue to have these every week, every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central. So you can keep showing up and keep meeting and talking with us, learning and asking your questions. If you do have kind of you've decided this is interesting, you're looking to proceed in this space, we'll have a couple of courses that are digital courses that will be live soon here. But we also are going to have programs where you can work directly with Hans, whether it's to start up your own business in whatever state you're in, or to acquire one of these, we will be here to kind of help you through that journey, value these businesses, find the best one for you, and then beyond that, help you get set up, help you operate successfully after the close. So we can do that. If you've decided this is where you want to kind of move forward and proceed, we can help you whatever that looks like. And like I said, Hans is going to be a part of it the whole time. It's not just going to be me trying to guide you through it. You're going to have somebody who's actually done it and helps people all the time.
Yeah, and
Yeah, no, you're good.
yeah, I was gonna say we've helped people that, and for those that are interested, one thing I want to touch on is we've helped people that have no medical degree, straight out of high school, to people that have that are doctors that are just not familiar with this space, or did not know, were not aware that this space is available to the everyday person. And that's the target I love to hit, is because you see the excitement for someone that didn't know that this was even possible. So I've gotten countless truck drivers that are now successful ambulance owners. And they were truck drivers at one point. So it can happen. I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is not something that you have to go to school for again. This is something that Josh and I can really help and guide you through the process and make sure that you're becoming successful, whether you're acquiring one or you're starting from scratch. So I just wanted to put that out there and make sure everyone understands this is for the everyday person that can actually own an ambulance company.
Yeah. And if you have questions or want to kind of talk through this, the best way is just to email us at info@routeconsultant.com. And we can, we'll guide you from there. Just mention that you're looking at this space, trying to talk to Hans or I, and we can help you from there. So if anyone has questions, or if anyone has kind of next steps, follow-ups, that's the best way to do it. I'm not seeing anything come in on the Q&A. So Hans, thank you so much for being here, kind of talking through this side of the equation, helping people understand trucks and all of the equipment that's a part of this space. And I know there's plenty more to dig into and talk about there. So I appreciate you being here and at least helping people understand this at a high level.
You're more than welcome anytime. I look forward to it.
Perfect. And for everyone who was on here today, thank you so much. And hopefully we will see you next week on the next webinar or in person at one of our events coming up. All right. Thanks, everybody.